morning, everybody. I must say this is the first time in my life that I have to give a talk without knowing the topic. I just saw it for the first time 2 minutes ago. And I was told by Sergei Village 2 days ago that I had to give a talk. So I didn't prepare anything. I'm going to improvise. Now, first, don't hesitate to interrupt me and to ask questions. There are no stupid questions. There are only stupid answers. You should feel comfortable with questions. Don't start saying, I don't understand what you're saying. There's no problem. I will do my best to explain it in another. So that's number one. Number two, I'm not going to talk about the kind of research that Sergei and I did during the last years. It will be boring, it's going to be a bit technical. What kind of mathematics do we use? What do we want to... No. Since you are students, I remember when I was your age. I remembered, I was trained as a mathematician first. And very much like in Russia, for the French people, pure mathematics is really pure mathematics. Right? Don't even talk about optimization theory. This is applied mathematics. So maximizing your functions, like the utility function, things we do all the time. I had no idea what maximizing a function was when I started working in economics. Because in pure mathematics, maybe you minimize functions when you do approximation of, but it's still for engineers. It's not for pure mathematicians. That's the way I was trained, right, in math. Axiom number 1, axiom number 2, axiom number Hausdorff in the space, axiom number 5. When does axiom number 2 is valid, holds under axiom number 4 and 6 together, this kind of stuff. Anyway, I was brainwashed. But it was an extremely solid training. I learned that when I had to say, there exists an eta, there is this epsilon strictly positive, such that I can find eta of epsilon for this property to hold. So I said that there exists an epsilon such that I can find an eta of epsilon that depends for this property to hold. And if I would say there exists an eta of epsilon such that, get out of the room. Okay? So we had to be extremely precise. So when I studied economics, why did I study economics? Because people of my generation, students, right, we were very leftist. Very leftist. So I understood clearly that to be a pure mathematician, you must be born with something special. It's like music. You must be gifted. If you don't have this gift, you may become a good teacher, but you will never become, a great mathematician. And a great mathematician, you are a great mathematician when you are 22 years. You know that. Right? The Field Medal, which is the counterpart of the Nobel Prize in pure mathematics, are given to people who are below 40. Because if you don't produce anything important before the age 40, forget it. You will never produce anything important. It's not true in economics, right? But in math, so it's like music. You have to be gifted for that. And I understood that I love math, apology for that, but I was not gifted enough. And being politically motivated, like many others, say, economics could be something interesting. What is economics? So I find the words on the door, economics. And I said to myself, metrics, it should be math or something, I don't know what, with economics. I knock on the door. There was a young teacher there. He was 32, I was 22. And I asked him, do you mind if I sit down at your class? No, it's very polite. So he looked at me. He said, come in, have a seat. So I listened to him, said, oh, I like that. So, well, this is what I want to do. Because in pure math, my teacher will never tell me, you get, even in in engineering. So there was not mathematics. So you can imagine in economics, sometimes it was an expression. Right? It's Mickey Mouse, you know Mickey Mouse, right? It's Mickey Mouse mathematics. That's what I mean for it. So, say that's something I want to do. But having brainwashed in math, I'll start by saying, you know, you're not supposed to do that because you did not check that the function is integrable, you did not check you can differentiate this function. And the guy looked at me and said, what are you talking about? Just we don't want to do these things. I mean, we do economics here. What are you to, the function is differentiable to prove that you can differentiate the function. To prove you can integrate the function. To prove that the function is Lebesgue measurable and this kind of stuff. This is what we did. Right? So I had to change my way to look at mathematics, to be more pragmatical. And I learned how to do it. And I was very excited. He said yes. Sometime in math, we want to be so precise that we waste time on some details, on some notation. Right? And basically what matters is the result. The result is correct. Now, if we are a little bit sloppy here or there, that's not a big issue, right? So it was okay. It was okay. And my training in math was extremely useful, and I'm sure that many of you, that's a Russian characteristic, are very well trained in math. In high school already, you get very, very good training. Better, much better than in many countries. So keep in mind that this training in math, it's something which gives you a comparative advantage. You will be more precise. You will understand, if I write this, you will understand the difference between a necessary and a sufficient condition. Many politicians do not understand the difference. Right? You see what I mean? They do not understand, they believe, we say, that's a necessary condition. Ah, you mean that it's enough if you do that? No. We say necessary doesn't mean sufficient. They don't understand the difference. So you know the difference. That's already very important. And many people have problems with stuff like that. So when I start economics, the main topic was general equilibrium. Right? Meaning what? Adam Smith said, well, there is an invisible hand that solves the problem how to balance markets between supply and demand. Supply, who are the people behind the supply? Producers, bakers, butcher, whatever. And on the demand side, people like us, consumers, people who want to buy, want to consume. Now, million of people are involved in this business. Just take that. Simple goods. Now, try to imagine the number of people who were involved in producing that. You have to design it. Let's say simple. A bit simple, but still, right? You have this here, you see what I mean? Why to have this? Why not? It's made of taste, flat or not flat, whatever. Black or blue or red. Now, the length, a bit longer, a bit shorter. Okay? Now, what is it? Just the color inside. How big you can use it for how many hours? Now, yes, it is produced. Now it is produced. Where is it produced? Well, in China. Right? It's produced. Now you have to sell it. So you have to ship that from China to Russia. But where in Russia? Where do you ship it? Russia is big. So do you ship it to Vladivostok? Do you ship it to Moscow? Do you ship it to St. Petersburg? Okay, let's assume you ship it to Moscow. When it is in Moscow, well, you need it in St. Petersburg. So you need other people to say, okay, let's send it to St. Petersburg. But if it is in St. Petersburg, it doesn't mean that you have access to it immediately. Right? You need some other people to say, okay, there is a big warehouse. There were some different shopkeepers. They say, I'm going to buy some, and I will sell them to you. So can you imagine how to coordinate all those people for something as simple as that? It's a problem of coordination. The great idea, which is totally counterintuitive, is that the market is able to do it. It's very counterintuitive because the market seems to be just, there is, if you ask me what is a market, I mean, that's a desk, right? We see the desk. We don't see the market. In a way, it's invisible, right? It's something abstract. Talk about markets, okay, what do you mean? Where is it? So the idea that markets, left to themselves, could lead to a distribution of activities, allocation of resources in a decentralized way. You take the greatest mind of history, Plato and people like that, and you ask them, what do you think? Is it good? It's complete nonsense. We should take the best people and they will decide for the population what they need. And you have heard from your parents how good the system is when you allow a few people to decide for the others. So the problem was, can we prove that Adam Smith is right? What does it mean? It means that we have people like us who want to choose what they like best. What they like best, but under one constraint, but more income. Of course, if I'm Bill Gates, the income constraint is not really binding, right? It's not a big constraint. If I'm the king of Saudi Arabia, likewise. But there are very few of them, very, very few. For most people, the income constraint is very important. So you and I make change. I choose that one or another one. Which kind of cell phone do you buy? I'm sure you have another one. I'm not sure, I don't know actually. This one is definitely different. I don't have any. Not because I cannot buy one, it's just because I refuse to have a cell phone. It's a different story. So you have cell phone. Look, this one. I mean, almost everywhere. So you choose to have that. Do you have a car?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have a car? Okay, why? Maybe his income is a bit higher than your income this year. Okay, so you make individual decisions. And then you have firms, producers. General Motors say we have to produce cars, different type of cars. Smaller cars, big cars, different colors, different design, and so on and so forth, see? You eat maybe, some food, cereals in the morning with milk. Jesus, when I was a child, just one type of cereals. When I lived in the US, the whole wall was covered with different types of cereals. With nuts, without nuts, with vitamin A, with vitamin B, with vitamin B and nuts, with vitamin C and vitamin B, all the possible combinations, right? So why do they do that? Because they try to make us happy, because if we like it, we have a higher probability to buy it. Okay? Now, if you ask a civil servant, say, of course I want to make people happy. But say, I know what is good for you. It is what Nikita Khrushchev say. I know what is good for my people. Well, for basic needs, yes. Education, yes. For roads, yes. For dams, yes. Governments can decide. But when we come to the everyday life, no. They don't know what we want. So, people wanted to prove, it makes sense. You have firms that try to maximize profit. We have consumers who try to maximize their welfare. Utility function, as we say. Firms have constraint, technological constraint, what we call a production function. Right? Yes, you need inputs, you need to put something, of course labor, personal capital, energy, how much do you need? And then consumers are their income. The income is also in the system, because your income depends what kind of job do you have. If you are a banker, this bank, you have a higher income than me. A banker always makes more money than a professor. Everybody understands. So, you have a lot of endogenous variables. The question is there a price system such that markets are balanced, supply or demand, and nobody can be better off? So, it took a long time for people to solve this question. Why? Because initially people said that it's a system of equations. Just look at the solution. Well, you know that the system of equation need not have a solution. Second, negative price would be great. You buy something and you receive rubles. That would be great, but in the real world, no negative price. So you need a solution. On top of it, you need a positive solution, or at least a non-negative solution. Because we consume air, and the price is there. So we need non-negative. So there was difficult how to prove that. And for a few decades, beginning of the 20th century, people work on that, serious people work on that, and try to prove it. And it's only in the 1950s that two people, Kenneth Arrow, American guy, Gérard de Breuil, was trained as a French mathematician, who met, discussed. De Breuil moved to Berkeley. Arrow was at Stanford, both on the West Coast, United States. And eventually, they prove it. Some other people too, by the way, more or less at the same time. Because, when we say this result has been obtained by X, usually you have another Y or another Z who came up with a similar idea, right? Because we have something like simultaneous discovery. But someone gets a higher visibility. Why? It's difficult to understand, right? But it was in the air, and we said, okay, that's wonderful, it works. Now let's build more and more on this kind of research. So everybody who had solid training wants it to work with equilibrium. In macroeconomics, we were taught Keynesian economics, which is totally inconsistent with equilibrium. Because we have disequilibrium in Keynesian economics. So it did not occur to people that in one class you teach something, and in another class you teach the opposite. We were students, and by the time students were supposed to shut down. The thing has changed a lot. When I was a student, I asked me a question, forget it. Forget it, no question. The teacher knows. Things have changed a lot, and I'm very happy. So, conflict. Econometrics, by the time we had the big frame, right? This computer would be, like that, somewhere like this. It would be here, the big frame. It would take, everybody would queue for hours, right? You put your box, and the day after, you would get the answer. And in my econometric class, we had the OLS. Everybody's familiar with the OLS? We have to invert the matrix, x prime. You remember that? So in my class, we had a matrix 14 by 14. I will never forget. The exam was 8 hours long. Why? Because we were given 4 hours to invert the matrix by hand. 4 hours to invert the matrix. You have no idea how fun it is. We had a small machine to compute. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 3 after 3 hours. 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5. Did I turn it forward? So you have to start again from scratch. And then you have to get angry, you want to eat something. You want to drink something. Yeah. No, I cannot stop now. I have to do that. 4 hours. Now you're on your computer. Okay, that's not even. Something has dramatically changed. Yes?
Were you allowed to use fast iterative approximate methods?
Yes, we use an approximate method, Gauss method.
No, just...
To invert the matrix, yes, we know that approximation. No, we didn't use the stupid method, we use the Gauss method.
No, there are methods compared to which Gauss is stupid. So it's like next level.
Okay. It depends on the teachers. Okay? I was taught the Gauss method, that's it. No, it makes it easier, right, by using the Gauss method. Otherwise, computing all the determinants is a nightmare. That's true. Anyway, it was totally different, right? Totally different. And then people were mainly driven, this attract a lot of mathematicians because they had a strong comparative advantage in general equilibrium theory by using more and more sophisticated mathematical models. But you know, the motivation was, I have a theorem, give me a problem. So we end up in the late 70s with tons of papers, hundreds of papers, which were totally useless. They all said the same thing. There exists at least one price equilibrium, so what? When you know the basic results, well, you can refine the model, make it a bit nicer, blah, blah, blah. But still, right, many papers. And second field, social choice. Are you familiar with Arrow's impossibility theorem?
Yes.
You know that? Okay. It's a negative result, right? We like positive results. So which condition in the axiom can we relax, change a little bit, and get a positive result? So people start axiom A prime, A double prime, A triple prime, very much like in math, right? You have to learn the acronym ASOB for one, the other one was ASBO, the third one is... So this paper became unreadable. And some journals say, we don't want to publish these papers anymore. Right? It's just for a small crowd of people, 15 people in the world understand what happens here. That's not economics anymore. So there was something like a crisis. And by the time, non-cooperative game theory developed. It was there. Right? Because Nash has already written this paper, but nobody understood what was Nash theory. There was some confusion between a zero-sum game and a Nash equilibrium. Of course, the solution of a zero-sum game is a Nash equilibrium, but you may have a Nash equilibrium in which the sum is variable. And this is where economics is important. Economics is important because it tells us that the size of the pie is variable. We can make the pie bigger. It's not because you get a bigger part of the pie that I get less. Both of us can get more. Okay? That's where economics is interesting. And this is another thing that many politicians do not understand. If you are the winner, then I'm the loser. No. It's more complicated than that. He can be the winner. I'm also a winner. He wins more than me. That's it. It's different. Doesn't mean I'm a loser. Okay? It's another important idea from economics. So by using non-cooperative theory, we start. That's when I was involved in this kind of stuff, studying market imperfection. So it was huge, numbers of papers by the time. Very interesting because it was new. This was brand new, right? Market imperfection. Products are not homogeneous. I told you, man, a lot of varieties, as we say. So people get very much interested in this kind of stuff. There is a lack of information. You know your demand function. I don't know. I just have some idea about what you know. I know the average demand, but I don't know your demand. I don't know your demand. What is my optimal pricing policy? Because it was recognized that firms choose their market, the price. The market does not give you the price. Okay? Prices are chosen by firms. And you may say yes or no, I buy. So we understood better this kind of issue. Now this was very exciting. And by the time, I was 30, and I work with very good people. Now, it's why research is exciting. You can do research alone, like some great physicists. people like Einstein. Einstein wrote his paper. You know, he worked in an office in Bern, in Switzerland, about patents. And in the evening, he wrote his papers. He was a genius, right? I mean, there are a few people like that. So forget people like Einstein. I hope you are a potential Einstein, but there are not many of them in the world. Okay, and I'm not. But if you can interact with other people, you have an idea. Is it a good idea? Or is it so-so, it has to be changed? No, it's not a good idea. The best thing to do is to talk with someone and understand what your idea is, more or less. You ask you a question, is it, do you mean that? I don't know, actually. It's a good point. Maybe yes, it could be A or it could be B. Let's assume it is A. Does it make sense to say A and then you discuss? No, A does not make sense. So let's try B. It works. That should be B. Okay, fine. So you make it better. Oh, why don't we write the paper together? Right? See, that's cooperation. We cooperate. We discuss with other good people. Sometimes we become friends. Right? Become friends because we work together. You know, when I work with my friend Gapsevich, we were like the two of you for hours, for days, for weeks, for months. He was a heavy smoker. I was not a smoker. All the time. Okay? And when I went back home, my wife said, just all your clothes. I mean, of course, just all the smoke I got from him during hours and hours, including my hair by the time I had my everything. But we became friends. And working together was, he would call me at midnight to say, by the way, I know how to do it. I would call him the day after at 7 o'clock. No, it's like that. It's exciting. It's exciting, but you need a good environment. Back to what I said, if you are a genius, you can be isolated. But it's not fun. Well, no, for them it's fun. It was fun for Einstein to write this paper. You are not Einstein, you need a good environment. You need people with whom you can interact. And believe me, it's very nice. I've been doing this for, I started doing research when I was 24, and I'm 72. So almost 50 years. I never get bored. When I look behind, I say at my age, you see 72, it's very old. So of course some days I had a meeting with colleagues, it was a bit boring, it was not really interesting. And then sometimes in research we failed. We thought we had a great idea. It was not a great idea. We were wrong. Sometimes we thought, it's a great idea, and we have the result. And a week after say, no, there is a mistake here. Oh shit, we made a mistake. So we were extremely happy. And then the week after we were extremely unhappy. It doesn't work, we made a mistake. Shit. What can we do now? 2 months, 3 months of work and it doesn't. Yeah, but from the mistake we can learn something. Because when you make a mistake, you can learn something. Why do we have a mistake? It's a good question, right? Because if it does not work because of that. Now, if we change something, then we understand that maybe we made an assumption here which is not the correct. So you start again, right? And we learn something from your mistake. And then maybe now you make a second mistake. This thing happened. And again, for a while you feel unhappy. Sergei is very good at that, right? He's extremely happy and that's very unhappy. Fluctuations are big. Mine are a bit like this. And when we write something together, we are going to have the Nobel Prize with it, and the day after, it's a disaster, it's the end of it, and we should do another job. No, all of us, more or less, it depends on the personality. But even when we are unhappy, you know, we have the feeling that we live, we do something. We are the main actors of our life. You see what I mean? You can be a businesswoman or a business. You have to be careful with the manager, the top manager, the CEO says, I disagree with the CEO. Never mind, the CEO wants that, you have to do it. Even if you believe that this is wrong. You are free to do whatever you want. You know, academic freedom is priceless. You are free to tell a member of the government, no, that's not what you should do, you are wrong. You can tell a businessman, no, you are wrong. Who can say that? Who are the people who have this freedom to say, this morning, of course I have classes, I have to teach, I have meeting in the department with this man, but otherwise I want to work on this because, and not because I've been told you have to do that this morning. As a businessman, I would have made more money. I had the opportunity to become a banker. So when I got the offer, just after my PhD, say, oops, they come to us. I got an interview. Then I left the building, the bank. So I don't want to do this. I want my freedom. Because freedom is something which is, no. When I say priceless, it's really true. It's really true when you can decide almost every day you do, even when you teach. Of course you have to teach, let's say, microeconomics. But the way you teach it, you choose it. You say, that's more important than that. And I want to explain what I consider is very important. You choose it, you have the freedom to it. You are not told, today you teach from page 55 to page 79. No. You choose how to do it. And during a whole life, and I can talk about a whole life, not at my age, I know what it means. You are very young, extremely young, you could be even my grandchildren, right? Having this freedom is fantastic. Now, for economics, it's a great time. Because nobody invert a matrix by hand, right? With computers, you can do amazing things. I work with a young guy in the Netherlands. We have data for 7 million people. No, it's not 14 by 14, the matrix, right? 7 million people. We have data about where they live, their income, the composition of the household, the age of people, the jobs, the value of the property, okay? The historical value, because in this part of the Netherlands there are a lot of historical value, which are high value. We have all this information. And we want to study how people choose their location within cities. But with all the, now we would have this information 30 years ago, 40 years ago. What to do when there's too much, too much information. Now with this big data, you can do amazing things. You can do, before I told you, Charlie Equilibrium, Keynesian economics, and bad economic tricks. That's it. Now you can do sociology. That's the impact of culture. Take people in this group, they have this kind of religion. They are more, it looks like they are more productive. Are they more productive because they are Protestants and more productive than the Catholic people, like Max Weber argued? Is it because of a religious issue? Is the causality issue? The causality. And unfortunately, at my age, I have to see doctors. You know what? I ask them, why? Why is it like that? Say, well, you know, sometimes I get the answer, but sometimes they don't know. Because finding the causality of something, it is because of that. It's something French. And now, in economics, well, in some other science too, But in economics, we have the tools to study the causality. And this is really deep science. It's the main explanation, that's it. It's there. People study issues like, in Germany, people were anti-Semites. But not uniformly anti-Semitic. It turns out that someone find data about that. 18th century data. Question. Were areas where people were mainly anti-Semitic in the 18th century? Was the Nazi party stronger in this area? The answer is yes. So, you know, so far it's a correlation. Now you study where, okay, did they become Nazi because in the 18th century they were already anti-Semitic? How to check that from the economic viewpoint? That's not obvious. It's an interesting question. It's not economics per se, but you come maybe to political science or history. There is a growing, almost every day, right? There are new issues that we can study by using economic tools. Because these two, microeconomics, give you a toolbox. Like, you know, you have problem with the car, you need some tools. Right? In the old days, the toolbox was small. Today, they have much more sophisticated tools. It's the same with us. We have much better tools. We understand much better incentive tools. We understand much better what a strategic behavior is thanks to game theory, not corrective game theory. We understand better why asymmetries, you know something which I don't know, how should I do, how should I decide? Even if I have incomplete information, you have full information, what should I do? So we understand these things better and better. So we can study more and more problems. In addition, every day you have new data sets. So you can study a growing number of issues over time. And then you can choose it. You choose what you want to do. I spend part of my time studying the distribution of economic activities across this. Where do firms, where do people appear? Why do we have a big metropolitan area like Tokyo? How many people in the greater Tokyo? Do you know? How many people live in greater Tokyo? How many people?
Moscow.
Sorry?
Like Moscow. No, Tokyo would be 40.
32 million. Much bigger.
Twice.
Yes, roughly, a bit more than twice. We don't know exactly about Moscow. Huh? It's more or less twice, let's say, but we don't know exactly. The Japanese, you know, they have very precise data, and there is no immigration. So it's okay. So why do you have a metropolitan area like Tokyo? Housing is extremely expensive in Tokyo. You have no idea how much. When I lived in Tokyo several years ago, half of my salary, 50%, was spent just on the rent, housing rent. Half, 50% of my salary. Okay? On average, take European country is 25-30%. So you can imagine how expensive it is. So if it is so expensive, why do people live in Tokyo? Because they are free to move to another place. The Japanese government doesn't tell them, you have to be in Tokyo. No, they choose to live in Tokyo. They are free to choose. So why do they do it? But wait a minute. It's true that Tokyo is expensive. But Tokyo is expensive because people want to live in Tokyo. Fine. Question, why do they want to live in Tokyo? Many reasons. We are what? I'm a worker and I'm a consumer. You'll be a worker and a consumer. Now, as a consumer, think of St. Petersburg. If you live in St. Petersburg, or you live in Novgorod, I've been there for a couple of weeks. It's a great place to visit, by the way, from the historical viewpoint. But if you want to find good restaurants. If you want to find shops with different type of beer or chocolate, wine, whatever, no more choice, no? Of course, very nice churches, very nice, but after a while you don't live all the time with a very nice church in front of you. You need more. You like to buy clothes, you like to change, what is that? You want to see a movie, you want to see a play, you want to go. In St. Petersburg you have fantastic theater for opera, for ballet, for symphony, philharmonic. It's great, with two great orchestras. You love music, it's a great place to be in. So, as a consumer, you find a lot of opportunities in St. Petersburg which are not, but it's not the end of the story. You're also a worker. Now, you are a student, a very good computer scientist, specialized in something. You are one of the best in the area, in the Berlin, whatever. Now, what's the probability to find a job with a good match between your training, what you know, and what a company wants? In St. Petersburg, you'll find one. In Novgorod, not much. It's a low. So, you are a medical doctor. You have the evidence that medical doctors who live in small towns, small cities, they have to do a lot of different stuff, different diseases. So they know a little bit about many things, but just a little bit. You go to a big city, they will tell you, go to these doctors. This is what he does, she does all the time. I live in Paris for a while, and it hurts. Went to my doctors and said, I don't know what I have. Each time I do this, my rectal hurts. He said, you need an X-ray, but go to this place. Why do I have to go to this place? It's a bit far. Not to go. No. There, they take X-ray. It's not all the time. So they can see things that I cannot see. They are so specialized that they will understand better what you have than any other doctors. Went there and it went. So you see the matching on one side, the supply, the matching is much better. So you become more efficient. If you are more productive, you have a higher wage. The firm is more productive. The firm is more productive, so the firm is able to pay you a higher wage. So people go to Tokyo or in St. Petersburg because the wage is higher, because they find a lot of opportunities for their everyday life. But there is a counterpart, right? Housing is expensive. Always in economics, you have a trade-off. Otherwise, everybody would be in Tokyo and everybody would be in Moscow. And not everybody is in Moscow, not everybody is in Tokyo. Why? Because there is a limit. If more Japanese wants to go to Tokyo, housing prices raise. And at some point, it's just too expensive. People cannot pay. And they prefer to live in a small town. And so we get what we call the urban hierarchy. Big cities. Small or big, medium-sized, towns, villages. And they perform different activities. In the center of Moscow, there are no manufacturing plants. Why? It does not make sense. We used to have manufacturing plants in the center of cities, in many countries, in the US, in Europe, in Russia. It was the center. Sometimes the manufacturing plant was the center of the city, the center of the city. But they use a lot of land. Think of when they produce cars. There is a line. It takes a huge amount of land. Now, in the city center, land is very expensive. So it makes sense to put the plants away a bit outside the city where land is cheaper. Because land is cheaper, you can also pay a lower wage to your worker. Okay? Because those who will live there will pay a low housing cost, lower housing price. because there are fewer people. So less competition on the housing market. Therefore, these plans move away gradually. They start moving away from big cities. Now, what do you have in big cities? What do you have in the center of Moscow? What do you have in the center of Moscow?
Kremlin.
Sorry?
Kremlin.
You have the Kremlin, yeah, of course. Yes. Okay, but apart from the Kremlin,
Headquarters, offices, R&D.
R&D,
Headquarters of firms.
headquarters of firm, financial sectors, activities which consume a small amount of land, offices, not plants, not production plant where you need a lot of land. Offices can be very small. Maybe the CEO was a big office, but still, right, it's a small amount of land. So these activities now are more in big cities. On top of it, who are the people who work in those services? Those who do R&D. They are the skilled people. Those who have a PhD, who have a master, who have something like that. Not the unskilled people. So if they are skilled, they have a higher income than the unskilled people. Right? So if they have a higher income, they have a higher demand for services. They want good restaurants. They want good theater. They want good bars and coffee houses and this kind of stuff. So more of these places come. Then we have what we call cumulative causality. A implies B and B implies A and A implies B and B and B. You see? Or secular causality. You have A because you have B, you have B because you have A, which is not the linear causality A implies B. We understand better this stuff. Now we understand better how city works. And we understand, for example, something in France is extremely popular from the political people. Rent control. French people don't understand anything about economics. It's true. Big difference with Anglo-Saxon country. Very different. I'm half French, so I can. So they love rent control. Which means what? You cannot increase the rent for years. There is a bit of inflation, right? 2%, even the good days is 1%. It's very low. But after 10 years, 1%, it means something. So the owners want to build new flats, want to build new apartments. Sergei told me here in St. Petersburg, 70,000 flats, new flats are built every year. This is what we need for Greater Paris. But for some companies to do it, they don't want to have rent control. But the local government, the city government, say, come on, the population wants to have rent control. What do we do? Either we get rid of rent control, but maybe they are not going to be re-elected, which for a politician is an issue. Or we impose rent control, and we will never have the apartment, the buildings we need to accommodate the population. And they have decided to build an express subway in Paris. You know why? Again, because you remember when I say I work with a friend, we learn from each other. But it's not only in research. It's also true for high-level services. You exchange information. Did you notice that what matters for the value of stocks? What are the places in the world? Wall Street, the city of London, Tokyo, and maybe Shanghai. That's it. If there is a crisis, it's one of them. So it is extremely concentrated. Why is it so? Because we talk, this company is in trouble. Is it? Okay, we said, right? Maybe. Well, the first one, good. You saw us, we said, oh yeah, they said, they probably know. So all the time it's like that. The key issue is to get the information, to be the first one, maybe the second one, to get the information. But if you don't meet, you say, oh, I can send an email. Yes, I can send an email. But maybe I'm not in my office. I'm not going to read the email, or I read it maybe 30 minutes after, and it's too late because someone else already got the information. You know what Wall Street, Manhattan is like that, right? Wall Street is here. They built a wall. When the European arrived, the island was occupied by Indians, and they bought the land from the Indians. They bought, I don't know how, but anyway. And they built something in wood, something like a wall. So the name Wall Street. So, the amount of land is limited. You have sky-rise building, high-rise building. Still, there is not enough space. Now there is a river, the Hudson River. Manhattan is here, the Hudson River is there. This is New Jersey. You cannot go by boat, it takes too much time. So they have developed fiber cable to send millions of information per second between New Jersey and Wall Street. Okay. Special type of cable, which you find only there. So that it's almost instantaneous. So what does it tell us? I don't like this is not the kind of economics I like. Right? Finance, it's not my stuff. I'm interested by real economics. It's a different story. Finance is okay. It's just that in real life. You have a sector here where information is critical. So being the first is extremely important. Now take something else. In research, medical science, you get a patent. But before getting the patent, okay, take an example, another one. It's well documented. The Silicon Valley. Why is it so successful? You work in a small company with 5, 6 other people. And you find, close to, you almost know how to build a new device. But you need something which you don't find on the market. It's not there. And I'm telling you a true story. It's not an invention, it's a true story. By the end of the afternoon, you go and play tennis with a friend for half an hour or for 40 minutes, just to relax. And you keep thinking, I need the stuff, but where to find it? And then you take a coffee or a drink with your friend, and you explain him just, I need something, I don't know where to find it. And usually your friends are people who work, in domains which are related to yours. So your friends say, hey, she needs that, okay. And then in the evening, say, wait a minute. I think I know how to produce that. So I call you, and I say, I know, I have it for you. So why do we start? We start a joint venture, a small company, the two of us. And I produce what you need. Now, in a few days, what I produce for you will be on the internet, but you have it days before anybody else. So you are the first one on the market. So when you come to research, when you come to any activity where information is critical, physical proximity is still matters. If I look at the face of Shamil, say, okay, I understand. No, I don't understand, or it's boring. I can read something from it. On internet, it's more complicated, right? So, people in management science, they study how to look at the way your desk are. That's very bad. If you form a team, you should organize. There has to be how to organize, how to put the desk for people to talk, to exchange information. And so, what's the purpose? The whole is more than the sum of the parts. See what I mean by this? All together, we produce more than the sum of what each one of us can produce. It's called increasing returns. So, You see, there are issues. I finished my story with cities, you know, but this is why cities nowadays are still very important. But you will find books. There are two books, very famous, bestsellers. The title of the first one is The Death of Distance. The second one, The World is Flat. You compete with everybody. It's not true. When you look at the empirical evidence, for example, you trade more with your neighbors than with the others. Say, wait a minute, I live in Belgium, right? Which are the biggest trading partners of Belgium? Germany, France, the Netherlands, the neighbors. Say, wait a minute, you also import from China. Yes, we do. You import more from China today than 30 years. Yes, it's true. But we trade even much more with Germany, France, and Netherlands than we do with China. So distance matters today even more than 30 years ago. And this is the so-called gravity equations. Some of you know what I'm talking about in trade theory. So distance still matters. And we don't compete equally. You still have localized competition. You compete with some people, not with the whole world. The world is not flat. The world is like that, with mountains, desert, and stuff like that. It's not a flat world, like, you know, like the Louvain. I've seen the Louvain years ago, totally icy, size, and all. That's not the world. The world is not like that. The world is full of inequalities. So the issue you may study, then you may get close to economic history issues. Then you can connect this with geography. You know, economics in this respect is much richer than it was to be. So it is intellectually extremely interesting. So, to sum up, you have academic freedom when you do research. You choose to do research on what you like. This is intellectually challenging. You will feel unhappy, depressed. But in any case, whatever you do, you will feel unhappy and depressed. Whatever your job, right? Keep this in mind. You will feel unhappy with your boyfriend or girlfriend. You will feel, whatever. It's always like that. But you choose the topic for which you are depressed. Okay? You choose it. Make a big difference. You cannot say it's because of him or because of her. You say it's my responsibility because I choose to work on that. And sometimes some people don't like that. Because freedom is it's not necessarily easy to manage your life and your freedom. For me, it's great. And last, how to say that your work is good? Well, there is a market, a special type of market for ideas. And it's a market where nobody has a big monopoly power. All the time you have entrants, new people, new students who enter the market with new ideas. Now your paper will be rejected by journal. So you can depress, and the comments is stupid, the referee did not understand what I wrote. But first, if people do not understand what you wrote, maybe that this is because you don't write very well. So, maybe it's because of me. Maybe I should write better. So you have to learn how to write. You have to learn how to present stuff. You have to go to a place. You have to travel. You have to go to other countries. But you meet other people with different cultures. It is interesting, because you meet people who are educated. You go to China, but you're not a tourist. You meet Chinese people who are willing to discuss with you. But you learn something, not just about economics. You learn things about China, about the civilization, the Chinese civilization. When I'm in Japan, I don't know the Japanese civilization, but I have some knowledge about the Japanese civilization. It's interesting. to understand how different it is from the Western countries. And it's something I learned from my interaction with people, and of course also some reading. So it's an endless process, right? I came in Russia. I learned a lot about Russia. I was interested in Russia before. That's why I accept, to come. But I know better, and I'm happy to know better about Russia. So that's why I keep coming, actually. So, it's not just doing economics. It's broader than that. You get friends. I have friends in the US. I have friends in Japan. I have friends in Israel. I have friends in France. I have friends in Russia. It's a great asset in my life. So it's not just freedom. You get a broad range of possibilities, of opportunities. But still, sometimes, yes, it's frustrating. But if your idea is good, eventually you will make it. Maybe it's going to take some time. Maybe you will be unhappy. Probably. You will be unhappy. It's going to be, but you need to study in a good environment. If you are in a bad environment, I want to hammer this point. If you are in a bad environment, unless you are a genius, you will not make it. You need a good place. Let me give you one example. I was at Brown University, which is a good university, not top, but a very good university. Rhode Island. And I had a friend, an Israeli friend, came to work. We had to finish work. We have only the night to work together. Okay? We had to work. We decided to work in the student room. The students work sometime until 2, 3, 4 a.m. So when I was in this room, I was fascinated many years ago. The students talk to each other. Say, I have this paper, it would be interesting to you. You told me yesterday you find something on the internet, can you show it to me? So they learn from each other. They learn from their professor, yes. But they also learn a lot from the other students. That's why being in a good environment is also extremely important. Of course, not all students are friends, of course not, right? But you will have some friends with whom you can discuss. What do you think? Can you read this chapter of my thesis? How do you find it? Is it well written? So you will do it for her, right? And then you will ask her, okay, I did it for you now. Do you mind to have a look at what I wrote? She will say, I think that section 4 should come before section 2. It's not the right order. And then you will feel more about it. Say, oh, it's a good suggestion. Thank you very much. So, this is the kind of interaction which is very. So study in a good place. You have a chance to be in one of the best places in Russia. So take this opportunity. Because, in one's life, we don't have many great opportunities. So when you get one, if you are interested, take it. What is it? You won't regret it. Thank you. No many questions?
May I be the first?
Yes. Yes, again.
I was listening. Thank you very much for presenting what is the life of academic economists. How fascinating is the material and how you lead your life, valuing people with whom you work, first of all. Thank you for that. And for young people, when I was listening, came to my mind. I will make a thesis, and you will say that I am wrong, probably. That for you, all of you here are talented, 100%. All of you are talented. Yes, that's true. And for talented people, competition is something that they usually like, not that what they avoid. And first, for me, it looks like this: that you have two choices. First, the degree of competition you like for yourself, the degree of competition. And second, the area, either academic life or business. In business, my approximate 5 times more salary. 5 times. For me, for Jacques, approximately, maybe 6. So it is a choice. In terms of competition, and my like perception may be wrong, that the more, if you like quiet life, you can be a counter. Quiet life, home at 6 o'clock, and this is your family. If you like competition, then go other kind of business or economic research. And in my opinion, the economic research is more competition. It is stronger than in business. So to compete with Einstein, in my opinion, is much more intellectual challenging than competing with Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Much more.
No, I agree. Well, it depends what we mean by competition. Okay, there was I'm sure you know, there was a game between Russia and Croatia. So there is a winner and a loser. That is what football is about. Winners and losers, always. And sport are like that. ID is different. It's not because of you have an ID that I cannot have an ID. You may have an ID and I may have an ID. Now, it may be that our 2 IDs are competitive. Sergei is right. Because your ID is different from mine. Your explanation is different from mine. But in business sometimes, and in politics even more, I will go to you and say, okay, I'll give you money, you won't say anything, right? Not in the academic world. Occasionally, but no. You have your ID because it's your ID. You know, it comes from you, from inside of you. You want to sell it, but not like a product. You want to convince the other that you have a good point. And eventually, if your ID is better than mine, you will be the guy who has the ID for it. So it is competitive. And I will say, shit, yes, his ID was better than mine, but still mine was not that bad. Mine is a bit unfair. No, it's not unfair, it's just that your ID was better than mine. But there are other examples. Your ID and my IDs are not completely different. They are complementary IDs. Thanks to your IDs, my IDs become more interesting. I can build on what you think and do more than what I would do alone. So we get we get competition, yes, but we also get complementarity. And for this complementarity, to work, again, you need a good environment. You need people with whom you can talk and exchange ideas, discuss. You try on the people. Do you understand me? No. Okay. Maybe I'm not clear. I try again. You got my point. And you tell me, no, this is bullshit, right? This is not interesting. Maybe I'm wrong, so I try on you. You tell me, this is bullshit. So I go to him. I like it. Maybe it's not bullshit, right? Maybe they are wrong, actually. So we discuss. In business, it's more difficult because you get the position, it's another type of competition. You get the job, or I get the job. It's mutually exclusive. IDs, yes, they may be very competitive, but they may be complementary. There may be complementary. See what I mean here? We can combine different IDs. And often, a new IDs is a new combination of old IDs. That's why it's important to talk to other people who know the old IDs. So you can try a new combination of all IDs and produce a new idea. Am I clear here or not? Yes? No. Yeah. Other question? Yes. Excellent.
Thank you very much. You talked much about academic career, but our students mostly oriented towards business career, and at the same time, they take many courses like microeconomics, macroeconomics, econometrics. and so on. The courses which, for the most part, would be useful for them in their future potential academic career. How could they benefit from these academic courses? And related question, how could they maybe combine a business career and academic career? Or
Okay, may I tell you a story? Bill Gates was a student at Harvard. Michael Spence taught a class in industrial organization. And he talked about, it was a brand new idea, network externalities, which means what? If you're the only one in the world with a cell phone, what's the utility of the phone? Zero. You cannot get connected. But the utility of the cell phone grows as more and more people have a cell phone. Right? That's what we call a network externality. So Bill Gates was a student. He said, oh, software is the same thing, right? If I'm the only one who uses my software, I mean, nobody wants the software because we're not competitive. But if I manage to build a system which is attractive to other people, then I will build what we call a critical mass, and I will sell more and more. He quit Harvard. He did not finish studying, and he started producing with a friend. They start in a garage. So ideas, of course, it's a special case. It's a limiting case, I agree. Now, if you take a big companies like Amazon or Apple or whatever, in Europe also, they have research lab. And the good companies are, for example, something demand, we have very good tools to make prediction about demand for goods. Because if you have no idea, you have a good product, but nobody's interested, what do you do with it? Nothing. So you need to have an idea about what is your demand. We know how to do it. We can use discrete choice model and we don't know the exact demand, of course, but we know more or less, 5% or 8% of the market, at least 5%. It's already a big amount of information, right? So some companies understand that they may learn something important by using those techniques. We in Europe are not as good as in the US. In the US, they have understood that for a long time. In Europe, countries like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, they have understood it, and they do very well. Countries like Italy, they have not understood it. They are not doing very well, for other reasons too. But it's important, that if you really understand microeconomics, you can discuss with a city mayor and say, look, you want to do this, but this will have the following implication, which is bad for the city. And the mayor by himself says, what do you mean? What is going to be bad? And then you can explain it. The type of discussion we have about Paris, about rent control. Before they never thought about it. But at least now they understand that there is a problem. They know there is a problem. It took us some time to convince them, fine, but they know there is a problem. Now, what will be the final decision is not with us. But they know that, they have to choose. There is a trade-off. And people, as I told you before, spontaneously, they don't think in terms of trade-off. That's good. Say, wait a minute, look at the other side of it. There are two sides. A coin has two sides. And naturally, we look at one side. And if you are a good economist in the sense that you really understand all this concept, then you'll be able to argue it and do this kind of stuff. Last, one of my daughters, she was very good in econometrics, unlike me. She graduated, and then she didn't want to do research, unlike her father. She searched a job. She passed in different interviews, and eventually, two of them. Two women. The other one has experience. My daughter, zero experience. She was a fresh, she just graduated a couple of months before. Second, in Belgium we have two languages, French and Dutch. She studied in France because we live in France. She didn't know any Dutch. So it looks like zero chance to get the job, right? Now the boss, the manager said, your thesis, what was it about? And she explained econometric models, studying the housing market, blah, 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 using hedonic regressions. You probably know what it is. Right? Oh, you can do difficult stuff. Okay, you'll get the job. You send a signal, this is called signaling. You send a signal to your potential employer that you are able to do something tough.
Like the model of Michael Platt.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. It works. It works. Other questions? Give me a few more questions. Nobody?
What was the most frustrating moment in your career as a researcher?
Okay, I was interested as a student, as I told you, by this issue of locational economic activity. By the time, I remember, I was a graduate student, and I talked to someone who was famous in the profession. And I explained him, this is what I would like to do. And I remember, it was a pipe smoker. With your training in mathematics, you should do something more interesting. See? The guy was famous. I was very young. I was 23 or 24. And he tells me, you should do something more interesting. No, even before. The topics is everywhere. There are a lot of applications. And 10 years ago, he told me, I made a big mistake when I told you that. Yes, but it was many, many years after. So for weeks, and for a long time, am I right? Am I wrong? Should I continue or not? And see, I still remember his sentence. With your mathematical training, you should do something more interesting. I still remember the whole sentence. So I felt terrible, terrible. Now I'm frustrated. Sometimes we get comments. He did not understand anything. But again, right? It's maybe because of me. Maybe I should write better. Maybe I should explain better. Maybe I missed something. So you have to question yourself. You have to say, am I as good enough to do this or not? And sometimes think, hey, maybe not. Maybe I'm not that good actually. Maybe I'm just okay, so. I can play football, but the second league, not the first league. You see what I mean? So yes, you have this kind of feeling very often. But you also learn how to live with that. We learn everything in one's life, We learn everything. And it depends basically on you. You cannot say it's because of the other. No, it depends on you. Which means you don't shave, right? Otherwise, if you shave, it's me, right? It's because of me, right? It's not because of the others. It's so convenient to say, it's because of the others. I have a problem, but this is because of the others. But if you say, I have a problem and it's because of me, it's not comfortable. And again, that's why talking to other people, say, okay, they like it too. So the probability I'm right is higher. But if I don't talk to other people, it's difficult. So it depends. Are you enough self-confident? But this is also something you can develop. But if you're not enough self-confident, in the business job, this will be the same. At some point, you have to say, no, it should be like that. But if you're not self-confident, you will shut up all the time. And others, and you will remain at your own. Same way.
So I think the time is coming to let Jacques go into lunch. I wanted to add that my intention for making such a lecture was to show you, for your career choice, to show you, does a person, I'm 10 years younger, does a person leading an academic life of economist look like a person of happy life? Yes, definitely yes. Sacrificing five times salary, working 16 hours a day, quite often. Huge competition, like Olympic Games. Huge competition, I repeat. Huge strong competition, and if not such competition, not working 16 hours a day. And still looking very happy. Thank you very much.